Hi, I'm Will, and I'm here with Charlie and Libby, and today we're going to be talking about the chapter, The Ghost Soldiers, in Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carry. Okay, so to sum this chapter up, Tim gets shot not once, but twice. The first time, Rat Kiley, who is the current medic, was able to get to him quick enough to help prevent him from going into shock. This really made Tim like him because it showed him that Kiley had lots of courage, and Tim really admired him for that when Rat was making his way towards Tim in the middle of the battle with bullets all flying around. Still, even though Rat Kiley was able to quickly help Tim, he had to be released for about a month to recover. But while Tim was away, Rat Kiley had also been released because he shot himself in the foot, and was replaced by Bobby Jorgensen, a younger medic. The second time that Tim got shot, Jorgensen wasn't able to get to Tim quick enough to help him like Kiley did. This results in a huge painful experience that was forced upon Tim. Also, he came to realize how close to death he was the second time he got shot, which put him in an outrage towards Bobby Jorgensen. So throughout most of this chapter, Tim O'Brien is talking about how much he despises Bobby Jorgensen and how he is setting out for revenge. But in the end, O'Brien didn't succeed in getting revenge on Bobby by scaring him, but finally came into peace with him, and they ended up becoming semi-friends.
Alright, so why do you all think Tim O'Brien wrote this chapter? What's the reason behind it?
I think it was written to show the divide between people who were fighting in the war and the people who weren't.
Yeah, I agree, because it contrasts with the rest of the book, because in this chapter, he is the one who's actually looking in on the war instead of being in the war. What do you think, Charlie?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. It shows how he's separated from the other soldiers, because now he isn't getting to experience the same thrills and traumas of the war.
I find the diction of Tim O'Brien very interesting when he says the guys had been his brothers and how they had loved one another.
Yeah, I think this really shows their camaraderie between soldiers at war, which contrasts with the separation of Tim O'Brien and the other soldiers once he can't fight at war.
Right, like on page 188, Tim directly says that he doesn't fit in and is no longer a soldier, and he really feels betrayed by his friends.
So, what exactly happened to make him feel like that?
Well, after Tim got hurt in war and he had to be released from the war, he felt isolated from the other soldiers when he finally got to return to his camp.
When he did return, though, he was still very angry with Bobby, the new doctor who couldn't get to him in time when he got shot in the field.
Yeah, and when Tim was in the hospital after he got shot, he really began to show the id psychological lens, especially when he talked about how he was going to be devoting a lot of time to figure out different ways to get back at Bobby Jorgensen.
That's right. He had so much anger towards him that it ended up becoming pure hatred towards Bobby.
Exactly. And while Tim was away, the other soldiers began to actually like Bobby, and most of them became really good friends with him.
His hatred of Bobby Jorgensen further isolated him from the soldiers who'd actually grown to like him.
Hence why Tim felt like he no longer fit in with the other guys anymore.
To me, this really sounds like a high school clique. Do you agree?
I agree. The way that Tim O'Brien doesn't fit in with the other soldiers makes it seem a lot like a clique.
I think it's really cool how Jorgensen ended up waiting for Tim by his car one morning just so he could try to apologize and let Tim know that he knows how badly he messed up when Tim was shot in the field.
This was almost enough to make Tim stop hating him, but he only ended up feeling the fire inside even more.
Yeah, that's right. O'Brien says that he hates Bobby Jorgensen for making him stop hating him.
I think it's funny how after Jorgensen apologized, Tim still wanted to get back at him.
What do you two think motivated Tim's behavior?
I think that when Tim was not at war, he bottled up so much anger that he just had to get back at Jorgensen.
I agree with you, Charlie. I feel like Tim thought it was just to get back at Bobby and then just let it all go.
I think that understanding O'Brien's actions help us understand how he felt when he could no longer be with his friends and help fight in the war, while other soldiers and his friends were actually getting to be in the middle of it while he was just on the sidelines watching.
Yeah, I agree. I think it magnifies the idea of when Tim says earlier on in the book about how you had to be there in the war to fully understand what happens while at war.
Yeah, since he's not at war, he's not really getting to have the same experiences as the other soldiers are.
Referring back to what I said earlier, I feel like what O'Brien is experiencing is a natural fear for everybody in society. Nobody ever really wants to feel excluded and be betrayed like he is at the time.
Okay, so let's talk about the environment in which the soldiers are in. It really plays a big part in this chapter. Any thoughts, guys?
Yeah, Tim's injuries results in him being all cooped up at the camp base while he's recovering, and I believe this really gets his emotions and his anger just heightened even more, because I know that if that were me, and I'd just be going absolutely crazy after being stuck in the same environment that long. So I think that him being stuck in the same environment really played a major role in him wanting to so desperately get back at Bobby Jorgensen.
I'm pretty sure that we would all be going kind of crazy if we were stuck like that.
I thought it was really interesting how Tim wanted to wait until dark to start up the whole ghost soldier thing.
I feel like this was one of the more devious moments for O'Brien.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. Because, I mean, just think about it. If it were late at night, aka dark out, and you were in an unfamiliar place and with people that were in your group, and they began talking about dead soldiers that came back to haunt people, it would just be terrifying.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I agree too.
So because Tim really wanted to get back at Bobby, I guess this was the best way he could think of that would leave the biggest impact with him.
This is another part of the environment that is present in the chapter that seems to be such a big deal.
I agree.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But guys, remember that none of this scared Bobby. He actually knew it was Tim the whole time.
And after the whole situation, they finally settled this, and they came to a mutual agreement.
Which was to jokingly scare Azar.
Well, guys, I do believe that we're just about out of time for today.
Thanks to everybody who joined us to discuss the Ghost Soldiers chapter and Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carry.
Thanks again for tuning into our podcast, Carrying Conversations.